Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, before we proceed any further, a big shout out to my channel sponsor, Fighting Mad, the pound for pound kings of boxing apparel. If you like the shirt you see to my right or to my left, you can find those exact shirts and many more just like them by going to the official Fighting Mad website. I'll leave the link for you guys right over here so you can go cop some merch and swag yourself out. Now, this is a video request by my main man, Johnny Cortijo. Shout out to my man Johnny over there in Vegas, Argentina's very own. Shout out to Tigre FC out in the Argentinian soccer league. But listen, he wanted me to do this video. This is a video request for him, and he wanted me to do a video on if I believe Deontay Wilder is the hardest puncher in boxing history. Now, this is something that we've heard from many people in the sport. One person obviously is Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury said this after his fight with Deontay Wilder. He said that I just fought the hardest puncher in heavyweight history and got up. And a lot of people wanted to criticize him and say, well, no, how could he be the hardest puncher of all time? You know, you got guys like George Foreman, you got guys like Ernie Shavers, guys like that. And listen, respect to Ernie Shavers, respect to George Foreman. These are some of the most murderous punches you'll ever see in boxing. But this guy's something special. Like, honestly, like, his punching power is something special. And I think the great trainer, Nazeem Richardson, the former trainer of Bernard Hopkins, he said it best. He said it best. He did an interview a couple years ago on Fight Hub. And you know what? I'll leave a link for you guys right here to that interview with Fight Hub. But a couple years ago, Nazeem Richardson did an interview with Fight Hub. And he was talking about Deontay Wilder and how great his gift is. And that no fighter in the heavyweight division has had this gift since the Ali era. And he's saying, and basically what he was saying was, his gift being his punching power is so great that he can break all the rules and just get away with it against everybody. And you know what? Fair play to him. He's right. He can. He can. You know, Deontay Wilder, his gift is so great. He can actually get away with it against. He can break all the technical boxing rules. He could do all the things that your coaches don't tell you to do in the gym, and still find a way to win. And that's just the kind of guy that Deontay Wilder is. So, with that being said, is he the hardest puncher of all time? Well, I look at it like this. This is just how I look at it, right? So Deontay Wilder, I always say in boxing that boxing is about moments, and it's about the moments you live in the ring, the moments you create in the ring, and the memories you give people to remember you by. You know, when you're done, you hang up your boxing gloves. So Deontay Wilder's given us quite a lot of moments. I mean, the Sergey Liakhovich knockout, you have that knockout, you have the Kelvin Price knockout, you have the Arthur Spilka knockout, the second Stavern fight knockout, the first Ortiz fight knockout, knocking down Tyson Fury in the 12th round, Dominic Brazil, knocking him out, and then Luis Ortiz last night. That's eight knockouts, or knockouts slash knockdowns, iconic knockouts slash knockdowns that I can name about Wilder off rip. His knockout highlight reel is as good as any fighter in the history of boxing. It's probably the best in the history of boxing, I would say. It's pretty damn good. But the fact, to me, I'm going to say this. I think he is the hardest puncher in heavyweight history. I'm going to tell you why I think he's the hardest puncher in heavyweight history. Because he does everything, or a lot of things, I should say, technically wrong. Wilder does a lot of things technically wrong. And he's still able to land that power. And he's still able to find ways to land that power and place his punches and hit you on the temple and hit you on the chin and hit you on the cheek and put you out in an instant, you know? I can't think of anybody in the history of boxing that can do what he's doing, a heavyweight, you know? Like, and people are going to say, well, George Foreman is a harder punch than Wilder. And listen, if you say that, I'm not going to get mad at you, right? But George Foreman to me, George Foreman was a better technical fighter. George Foreman was a bit of a smarter fighter than Wilder in terms of his boxing IQ and setting things up and knowing his distance. He might have been a bit better at that than Wilder because of the amateur pedigree, even though they're very similar in terms of the amateur background. I think George Foreman's amateur pedigree is a bit better than Wilder's, and he was better amateur than Wilder. So because of these things, I think his boxing IQ, you know, he used that a little bit more than Wilder. As to where with Wilder, it's like you could be winning on all the cards. You could have the fight being fought at your pace. you could win 6 rounds in a row, as we've seen sometimes with Ortiz or Fury or Gerald Washington. You could win 4, 5, 6 rounds in a row, and boom, baby, it's over. That's over. It's over, and that's it. And it's like, people will say like, oh, well, Ernie Shavers was a harder punch than Deontay Wilder. And my thing is this, right? Okay, if Ernie Shavers was a harder punch than Deontay Wilder, and I understand that his era was one of the best eras for boxing in history. I understand that. But if Ernie Shavers was a better punch than Wilder, then how come he never became world champion? How come he didn't knock anybody out to become world champion? Because he's not a better puncher than Wilder. And being a better puncher than somebody doesn't always mean your punching power. That could also mean being able to set up the punches to land the power, or knowing what kind of a fight to fight so that you can land that one big shot. And these are kind of the things that get glossed over in you know, they're not talked about enough when it comes to being a great puncher. It's all fine and dandy if you can be a great puncher and you punch hard. Okay, great, but plenty of guys punch hard in boxing. It's another thing when you get to the higher levels of boxing to still be able to punch the elite guys with those same punches you were punching those smaller, the lower level guys, the mid-tier guys, the fringe contenders. Because as we know in boxing, when you get to that elite championship level, you know, it's hard to dominate or display some of the same things you were displaying when you were fighting as a contender, as a prospect, you know, as a fringe contender, these things, you know. So Wilder's special to me because he's been able to do this at every stage of his career. He's been able to do this as a prospect. He's been able to do this as a fringe contender. He's been able to do this as a contender. He's been able to do this in a world championship fight. He's been able to do this all during his title reign. So for these reasons, you got to give Wilder his credit. And hardest puncher in heavyweight history, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. He has a 95% knockout percentage. It's the highest punching, it's the highest knockout percentage in the history of the heavyweight division. I mean, and the thing is, I always say this, right? I always say this because the big argument I'm going to give people in my comment section is that Deontay Wilder has fought bums, or he hasn't fought nobody good. Oh, and to that I say this. Even if that's the case, if you've only fought bums and if you've only fought, you know, no-name opposition, then you should be knocking them out. You should be knocking them out. And how many times in boxing do we see guys who are big punchers, they fight someone who's an awkward fighter or someone who's a bit, you know, defensive, and they can't knock them out because they need him to open up? That doesn't matter at Wilder. It don't matter whether you open up or not. That dude's going to run up on you, and he's putting your lights out. He brings the pain. And it's like, if you look at George Foreman, right? George Foreman, if you go look at his career, if you go to his, second, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you go to his 8th professional fight, right? He fought a guy named Roberto Davila, right? He fought Roberto Davila from Peru, a heavyweight, 6'4". He had a final, the record at the end of Roberto Davila's career was 27 wins, 29 losses, and he got stopped 7 times. This guy Roberto Davila, right? 7 times, and he got stopped by like Buster Mathis. He got stopped by, who else he got stopped by? Some guy named Wilfredo Alvarez. Who else he gets stopped by? Who else? Buster Mathis, Jimmy Ellis. I mean, he got stopped by guys that you would say are not the same kind of puncher George Foreman is. All right, this guy who was a journeyman. But a guy like that would not go 12 rounds with Deontay Wilder. They would not go 6 rounds with Deontay Wilder. They would not go 4 rounds with Deontay Wilder, because if you go back and look at Wilder's career, Deontay Wilder, I mean, if we go look at his 8th fight, who did Wilder fight in his 8th fight? He fought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He fought a guy named Jerry Vaughn in his 8th fight in 2009, okay? When he fought Jerry Vaughn, he retired Jerry Vaughn. Jerry Vaughn never fought again. Okay, so when Wilder fights that kind of level of opposition, he gets them out of there. And the only guy that can claim they went the full 12 rounds, the only 2 guys that can claim they went the full 12 rounds at Wilder are Tyson Fury and Bermane Stiverne. Okay, and in the case of Bermane Stiverne, he fought in the rematch and he got destroyed. Being Stiverne is a meme now. It's an adjective. It's a freaking adjective now. You know, Wilder will Stiverne you if you cross in the wrong way. So, is he the hardest puncher in heavyweight history? Yes, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it's time to give him that title. I think it is. I think it is because listen, I don't care what you say about his boxing skills, because listen, he's not freaking Pernell Whitaker. He's not Floyd Mayweather. He's not supposed to be Floyd Mayweather or Pernell Whitaker. But when you look at his last 10 years worth of fighting, I mean, his whole career, knockouts, just knockouts, knockouts, knockouts everywhere. And it doesn't matter what the level of the opposition is, he's knocking them out. I mean, Ortiz is a good fighter. I think we can all agree on that. Luis Ortiz is a fantastic fighter. And unfortunately for Luis Ortiz hasn't been afforded the opportunities to fight a lot of the top guys. You know, and Ortiz, he fought Brian Jennings, he fought Tony Thompson, he fought some decent guys on the way up. None of these guys dropped him or gave him any problems until he fought Deontay Wilder. So I've been criticized in the past a lot for being a Deontay Wilder hater, which I went out of my way to say this many times, and I'll say it again. I'm not a Deontay Wilder hater. I don't like how his career has been ran outside the ring, and I think he should have taken the Anthony Joshua fight when it was offered to him. And I think it was a clear duck. Straight up, I think it was a clear duck. I think they ducked that fight. And the funny thing is, I actually think he would beat Anthony Joshua now. Like, as time went on, he's showing me wrong. He's showing me, you know what, Brendan, you're tripping. Anthony Joshua can't beat this guy. He can't beat this guy because do you guys remember back in the day, like when you played video games? Like for those of you out there who played PlayStation 1 or 2 or Dreamcast, or maybe you were a Nintendo GameCube guy, or maybe you had a Sega Genesis or Atari or Pong or whatever. Do you guys remember back in the day when you used to play video games, particularly like a fighting game? Like if you played a fighting game, let's say you played like, I don't know, Mortal Kombat or something like that. And you know, do you guys remember how you would play these fighting games and you would beat all the levels, and then you get to the last level, and then you play the final boss, and the final boss isn't quite like everybody else. You know, when everybody else hits you, your life kind of just goes down like this. But when the final boss hits you, your life goes down like that. Well, Deontay Wilder is that final boss in real life. And you know what? I'm not even gonna call Deontay Wilder the Bronze Bomber anymore. I don't think he should be called the Bronze Bomber because you know, it's whatever name. I'm not really too fond of that name. We're gonna call him the final boss, Deontay the final boss Wilder, because that's what he is. He is the final boss. When he punches you with that power, he's got that final boss power that you see in the video games. You know. And how crazy would it be if you were playing a boxing video game, right? And you play with Wilder, right? And you can't box anybody, you can't jab them, and you can't do any of that stuff. But the one time you catch him, you win the game. That's what he is. He is a fucking video game character in real life. In real life. So you know what, Deontay Wilder, we're gonna give you the proverbial crown here on True School Sports. And yes, he is the hardest puncher in the history of the heavyweight division, and Tyson Fury isn't crazy for saying that. And I think at this point, if you sit here and tell me that he's not the hardest puncher in heavyweight history, then I don't know, man. Because you can't really argue. Listen, you can't argue George Foreman, because there's been guys who are journeymen that have went the full 4, 5, 6 rounds of George Foreman and been lucky and made it. Okay, ain't no journeyman making it out the ring with Deontay Wilder. That has never happened before. I want you to think about that. Okay. No journeyman or gatekeeper or any sort of mid to low level opposition has ever made it out the ring with Deontay Wilder. The only guys that make it out the ring with Deontay Wilder are guys who have held the world title. All right, like Romain Stavern or Tyson Fury. Okay, so this guy, to me, he's the hardest puncher in heavyweight history. I think it's time to give him that crowd. I could sit here, I could be stubborn, I could say I could try to just downplay him, but I think it's time to give him his credit, because he's done it over a whole title reign. And you can't sit here and tell me, I mean, if you look at, I know you guys are going to say Wilder spot bums. And I'll agree with you guys in the sense that I think he should have fought better people. I think there's fights that he ducked, okay? I think there's like about 2 or 3 he ducked, or that avoided, maybe not him himself, but his team avoided for whatever the case may be. But regardless of what I say there, he stopped some very durable men. I mean, we're talking Chris Arreola. Chris Arreola is a very durable fighter. He stopped Artur Spilka. He stopped Johan Duapas. He stopped Romain Stavern in the second fight. He stopped Gerald Washington. He stopped Luis Ortiz. He dropped Tyson Fury twice, which has never been done before in a fight. You know, Steve Cunningham dropped him once. That's true. But nobody's ever dropped him twice. And nobody's ever dropped him in that sort of a fashion, you know, to where I thought he was dead on the canvas. And the only reason he got up is because Tyson Fury, as I said many times, he's a special heavyweight with a special sort of toughness inside of him. And he's the only guy that can get up from that. So, Deontay Wilder is my pound for pound hardest puncher in the heavyweight division. He is the heavyweight Tommy Hitman Hearns. He's the guy that gets all the mistakes. You know, it looks ugly, it looks ugly, it looks ugly, it looks ugly, and then bang! NyQuil, time to go to sleep. NyQuil. So, Deontay Wilder, yeah, I'm giving it to him. I'm giving it to him.